So we're going to talk about founder focus and building some habits in this area, particularly since several of you are just are just in the process of launching your business. I want to put this out there. Focusing as a founder is dramatically different than the way that you focused in corporate America, whether it was a small business or a large business. Building focus habits is A, very, very different, and B, it's very challenging. And it's challenging on both ends of the spectrum. It's challenging when you're just getting started because you don't have the routine that you used to have. You don't have to show up for these meetings at a certain time. If you want to order pen and paper, you have to figure out where to buy it from. What is it going to cost? I mean, you have all these weird things that you have to figure out that you didn't used to have to figure out. And then the opposite end of the spectrum, where some of our larger businesses are like Tanya, you go through these fulcrums, and the fulcrums are very, very challenging. There's 3 of them. And so the what we're going to be talking about with focus, I'm going to try to curate it to both audiences. So those of you that have been a business for a while and are a little larger can walk away with some strategies, as well as the folks that are just getting started. If you don't know much about Shifco, we offer lots of free training. We have an amazing YouTube page with tons and tons of free training. Most people tell us all the time that our free training is better than what they pay for. So you're welcome to come to any of our events. There's no limit. We want to serve you. And obviously someday we hope you'll become a member, but we want to serve you because we want to help you grow your good. The next 2 events that we have coming up, we do about 3 events a month. We have one on authentic marketing. And if you're just getting started, I would highly recommend that you attend that, because you're going to walk away with specific action plans for how you can get more awareness for your business. And then on November 20th, we're going to be working on mindset and but also how you speed up success by getting yourself into a different frame of mind. So feel free to join us for those live events, and feel free to visit at the YouTube page. What Shifco does is we train conscious entrepreneurs how to grow their business and maximize their impact. That's all we do. And we do it day in and day out. I wake up every day thinking about how do I grow our members' businesses. I go to sleep thinking about that. And we believe that when you double a conscious business, you triple its impact. 88.9% of our members double their revenue. Now, if you're just starting out, it's like, well, that's not hard to do. But the vast majority, we have members from 0 all the way up to 10 million in revenue. And a high percentage of them are having that type of success. And 97% stay with us every single month because it's a month-to-month program. It's still very affordable, but we're just serious about helping you grow. And building focus is one of the ways you do that. Why am I fortunate enough to get to lead this brand? I've had multiple business exits, including leading a company to an initial public offering on NASDAQ. And then in 2009, I had my own purposeful awakening and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I started a portfolio of brands that had one goal, and that was to use my business growth skills to make the world better. So that's all I do. The core company that I run is called Share on Purpose. We have a speculator fund that invests in conscious businesses like Your Izzy. It's the first zero waste makeup and skincare line. And by the way, for those of you that are in the UK, Your Izzy is launching in the UK in November. So be on the lookout for it. We've been given a very, very high rating by the UK Sustainable Beauty Council. So a big fan of that product, and I'm an investor in that, and I absolutely love it. So that's one of the things that we do. And the other thing that we do is called the Cultivator, where we actually create our own companies. And I've created several. Shifco is number 5 in the Cultivator. And several of my clients from the other businesses came to me and said, hey, you really need to create something in a community format. We want to put up money and help you do it. And so that's how Shifco was created. Some of my clients came together and helped create Shifco. So that's a little bit about us. But moving back to you, when you think about focus, I'm going to call on you for a couple of minutes. When you think about focus, what comes to mind? Tanya, what comes to mind when you think about the concept of focus?
Good question. I think to me, it's all about making sure that I'm fully present in the moment and kind of capturing my energy to try to get into a flow state so that I can really be productive.
Love it. And then somebody that's just getting started, I'd love for you to comment. When you think about focus, what comes to mind?
I'll sorry, I've not got my video on because I've got my husband coming in and out of the room at the moment. But I I think it's, for me, when I think about focus, it's really about trying to push everything else out of my mind. Like, I'm someone that just like right now I've got my toddler crying in the background, and it's like, I'm sure there's other people here. There's always 100 things going around in my head. So I think it's trying to push everything else away and just being able to like tunnel vision onto one thing, if that makes sense, without
That's
the word focus.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. And why that matters as an entrepreneur is not only is your personal life pulling on you, but the business demands different things of you. And I mean dramatically different things. Everything from, oh my gosh, I have to learn how to set up social media. And oh my gosh, I need a website? How do I package this? How do I price this? And you end up with more questions than answers. And I really want to, for those of you that are just getting started, I mean, again, I'll keep commenting on both ends of the spectrum. For those of you that are just getting started, one of the hardest parts is there's more questions than answers. And we're not used to that. We're used to having few questions and lots of answers because that's the way corporate America pays for us. On the opposite end of the spectrum, for those of you that have been doing this for a while, the business demands different things from you at different times. And the business is constantly going up and constantly going down. And when it's up, we think it's working. And when it's going down, we think it's not. And what happens is our focus tends to flow with the rhythm of the business. Oh, it's working great. Everything is wonderful. Oh, it's not working. I got a million fires. And what happens when our business is larger is we lose focus because we're looking at where the business is right now rather than where we want the business to be. So again, I'll comment on both ends of the spectrum. Now, the other thing I always like to ask when people come to this particular program is, what makes you think you need to focus? You guys saw this, you registered for it, there was something about it that drew your attention. What makes you think you need to focus? Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, for me personally, it's what's the one thing that I could focus on to really move the whole needle forward. And I think for somebody who just started a business, it's hard to focus on that one thing when you have kind of all of these to-dos kind of rattling around, to your point, Terry, about marketing and branding and pricing. And it's like, oh my gosh, how do I just pick the one thing and move forward with that?
Bingo, bingo, bingo. And for anybody that's new and you're feeling that, I can tell you, I mean, I've personally launched over 20 businesses in the last 10 years personally. And I can tell you, you don't need a website to launch a business. You don't need to have your pricing figured out to launch a business. You don't need a business plan to launch a business. What you really need to have is you need to have a very clear target market that you're really passionate about serving and some vague idea of what it is you're going to do. And beyond that, if you follow that and you start talking to that target market about what their problems are and what they need, they're going to tell you what the business should actually be. And I know people always get amazed when I say that, but I mean, I cannot tell you. We launched Shiftco with literally a 2-page flyer and 3 slides when we launched Shiftco in 2020. So you don't need those things. And what happens is all of those things become distractions and they take your mind off of that one thing that Margaret was just talking about. So why does it seem so hard to focus? Is really, the fact that when you're in a job, you're kind of beholden to their routine. On Mondays we do this, on Tuesdays we do this, and Wednesdays we do this, and at 12 o'clock everybody goes to lunch, and yada yada yada. When you work for yourself, there is no more routine. And so part of it is you don't have a routine, which is part of what I'm going to suggest is you need to build a routine. You got to make it up for yourself. You don't have a routine. You don't have the same requirements. You're not exactly sure what to do. I'm going to come back to that a lot, for both folks that are more experienced as well as people that are new. And then when you're more experienced, we get lulled into thinking we've got it figured out. And I can tell you, you never have your business figured out ever. And the minute you have it, you think it's working and that it's figured out, something is going to break somewhere or shift, because businesses are like children. They're living, breathing things, and they change dynamically. In the beginning, for those of you that are starting, it's like a newborn. It changes every single day. Like every day you notice something that's different. When the business gets to be about 10K a month, it's like a 2-year-old. It's kind of messy, and it's starting to run all over the place. And then in between that kind of 10 to 30K a month, that's when it starts to like almost be ready for elementary school. And we start to think we have it figured out. But anybody that's had a child in elementary school knows that there's some really big ups and some really big downs. And then when you get, closer to the million and beyond a million, that's when we really get ourselves into trouble, because we think we have it figured out and we think things are working, and then we don't really follow them all the way through, and we start focusing on too many things at one time. And I'm the worst at this, as my team will tell you. I am the worst at this, and they have to constantly remind me what is the one thing that we're focused on this quarter. And we have a multi-million-dollar portfolio of brands, and I get so enthralled with what I'm doing, and I think these things over here are working, and I go to start the next thing before I've really checked to make sure those things are working. So that's what we're going to really talk about. And what I can tell you about entrepreneurship, I've been an entrepreneur since 2002, solely an entrepreneur. Prior to that, I worked for Entrepreneurial Ventures as a president, running divisions of Entrepreneurial Ventures. But since 2002, I've been an entrepreneur by myself. So that's a long time. And I can tell you the most important skill that you need to learn is focus. It is the way that you master this game of business. And the focusing part has a lot to do with not only that one thing that Margaret talked about, but also focusing your mind on what it is you want versus what it is that you're afraid of. Focusing your mind on what it is that you want rather than what's going wrong. Focusing your mind on where you're going instead of what's happening in the economy. So this focus isn't just on the discipline of the business, it's really on the mindset side as well. And I'll address both of those. Now, how do I know this is true? So we track every member's success in SHIFCO. And as of July, we crossed a pretty big barrier where almost 90% of our members had more than doubled. The ones that were using the platform had more than doubled since joining. Most, if their business is under 10K a month, we can almost always have it happen in a year. If it's a little bit larger, it can usually if they're about 50K a month, we can usually in 2 years get them to 100K a month. So we track that very closely. That's how we measure performance. And we adapted a model that I use in my portfolio with my leadership team. And the idea, it's called a performance coaching model. And the idea is, how do you move someone from stationary and stuck, which is down here where we're spinning, to where we're developing skills of mastery, right? So that's the range that we're working with. And to do this, you have to do two things. One, you have to take action to apply knowledge. So you're going to learn some focus skills today. If you just listen and you jot a few notes, but you don't actually do anything with them, it goes out the window. Tomorrow you won't remember. But if coming out of today, you immediately apply one of the techniques that really resonated with you, you're going to begin to build a focus habit. So you have to take action. The second thing, and this ironically from our research, having studied now, I've personally studied thousands of founders, the thing that's the hardest is actually willingness. That, entrepreneurship is, there's not I kind of want to do that. Entrepreneurship is, I have to do this to pay the bills. I have to make this work, pay the bills. I have to grow and become a better person to pay the bills. There's a have to with entrepreneurship that you don't have when you have a job. And man, I felt that my first 2 years, 2002, 2003, going into 2004, I failed miserably. And I seriously started to look for a job and was going to hang up my entrepreneurial hat. I was this close to getting a job and quitting after 2 years of failure, basically. And I hired a coach, and I remember what the coach said. Number one, Terry, what are you afraid of? And I said, selling and rejection. And she said, number two, what are you willing to do to have the business that you want? And I said, anything. And she said, you need to get out there and sell. So she literally kind of put it right back in my face. And she was right. You're going to have to learn things that you don't want to learn, and you're going to have to learn how to like them, as in marketing and sales, which is what I had to do. So this idea of willingness is quite honestly the trick to the focus part of it. What happens when you're not taking action and you're not willing to do the things that you need to do is you get in these loops, and it's just literally, you're just cycling, and you're stagnant or stuck. On the other end of the spectrum is like, I want it really bad, Terry. I want it, but I'm not taking action. I want it really bad, but I'm not taking action. That's usually because you're stuck in FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And then over on the opposite end of the spectrum is, I'm busy, I'm doing stuff, but I'm not really willing to do the things that I really need to do to get to where I want to go. Then you get in unfocused and inconsistent. What we try to do is to help you get into what we call the mastery quadrant. And the mastery quadrant is developing a little bit of success, which motivates us. And I'm going to show you how to do that today, because we want to get a little motivation going where you start to go, well, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do this, and build on that motivation until the drive kicks in, where you will never quit. And I will never quit. I am completely unemployable. Even when I've lost lots of money in the various businesses I have, I'm not turning back, because I absolutely love what I do. Because I know now, it isn't just because of success, because I've had a ton of failure. What it is I know how to get myself in the mastery box. That's the key. And what I'm going to do with today is to show you how to do that using focus and success habits. Okay, so the mastery box is really the key. Couple of reasons why we don't focus. Number one, we really haven't learned how to focus. And corporate America creates systems that force us to focus the way they want us to focus. You come in at 9, you do this at 10, on Tuesdays you do this, the reports are due on Wednesdays. So we haven't really learned how to focus on our own. What we've really learned when we're in a job is how to basically kind of run on the treadmill that they've given us. And then what happens when we get into entrepreneurship is we're just adrift. We don't have any of those things anymore. Or for those of you that have larger businesses, you have to learn how to focus at new levels at every level that you attain. So let me say that again, for those of you that have larger businesses, every step that your business takes, you have to learn how to focus at a different way. And when you have employees in your business, you have to focus very differently, because now what you have to do is you have to inspect to make sure they're doing what you train them to do, which is a very different type of focus than when you were doing it yourself. So first thing is, we haven't learned how. Secondly, we subconsciously tell ourselves that we think we can't. And it becomes a story. I hear this all the time. Well, Terry, I have ADHD. Or Terry, I've got, attention issues. So what, right? Entrepreneurship is the kind of thing that you're going to have to break those habits, and you're going to have to build the belief that you actually can learn how to focus. And then 3 is, there is too much to do. I don't care whether you're just getting started, like some of you talked about, or you've got a multi-million-dollar business. There is too much to do. There will always be too much to do. And you just have to get used to the fact that that's the way it's going to happen. And then last but not least, and most important, and one of the biggest things I want to advise you on, is we use action to feel better. So if our business isn't working the way that we want, we start getting busy and we start doing stuff. And that's when we spin. Or if we're just getting started and we're not sure what to do, we start just doing stuff, but the stuff isn't really leading us anywhere. So we're going to address these 4 reasons for why we don't focus. But before we do that, I want to stop and see if there's any questions. All right, perfect. So now let's talk about the 3 things you're going to have to build. These are literally the 3 requirements you have to make the focus game work. Number 1 is you have to know what to focus on. And less is more. That's our mantra in our portfolio. Less is more, less is more, less is more. We're not doing 5 things this year. We're doing 1 thing well. And if we do that 1 thing well, we're going to do 2 things well. So you have to know what to focus on. Secondly, is you have to build focus skills. And again, they have to be built. Like it's not, you know, a nice to have. You absolutely have to build focus skills. And then you can learn that, by the way. And then third is you need a level of accountability. One of the things that I would advise you guys to do is start connecting with each other. And, you know, there's several of you that are starting new businesses, connect with each other and start being what we call them accountability buddies. Start being accountability buddies for each other and put some of these things in practice and hold each other accountable. For those of you that have larger businesses, make sure that you've got a coach or a mentor or somebody that's holding you accountable, and then ultimately teach your team to hold you accountable. So that's what we're going to work on today. And the insight related to this is that focus is about being productive rather than being busy. And on the surface, everybody that reads that goes, oh yeah, sure. Of course it's that, Terry. But I cannot tell you, after 25 years of being a founder, sometimes I get busy and I just start doing stuff. And when that happens, it's almost always because I'm afraid, or it's almost because I'm not sure what to do. And so when we're afraid or we're not sure what to do, action makes us feel better. It's literally like an aphrodisiac, and it starts making us feel better. It makes us think like we're doing something. And we start doing all of these different programs and these different things, thinking that we're moving the ball down the field when we're not. We're actually busy, but we're not productive. In corporate America, this happens all the time. In entrepreneurship, it's destructive. Like literally, it will keep you from building the business that you want to build. It will keep you from earning the money that you're capable of earning. So the key is to really be productive, to know, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And am I hyper focused on it, or am I getting into that busy trap? So typically right here, people go, okay, Terry, that's great. Now, how do you do it? Right. So there's 3 things we're going to go over. One is knowing where to focus. That what do I focus on? That's what I say is where to focus. How do you know where to focus? If you don't have number 1, the rest of it doesn't matter. You first have to know where to focus. The second thing is you have to know how to focus. And this is not like something you learn or you read a book and magically you know how to do it. It is something you have to practice. And then you have to practice it like day in and day out. And then last but not least, you have to learn how to invest time. So let's start with where to focus. So the way that you figure out where to focus is you start with, where do I want to go? Kind of that whole old Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. And then you be ruthlessly honest with yourself about, where am I now? And then you say, okay, what is one thing, not 5, but what is one thing that will move me from where I am to where I want to go? So for those of you that are just starting out, I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning. Where are you now? You're at ground zero. Where do you want to go a year from now? Do you want to have 5K a month? Do you want it to be 10K a month? Whatever it is, put it out there. Now, what is the first one thing you need to focus on? Who is my target market and what is their problem? That's all you need to know. Not building a website, not building a pitch deck, not figuring out your pricing. The one thing you need to focus on when you're just getting started is, who is my target market and what is their problem? That's it. And you got to start talking to them and start talking about the business as it's coming together. Don't think about the website. Don't think about setting up your QuickBooks or any of that kind of stuff. All of that's going to do is distract you. Don't even build a freaking business plan. For those of you who are further along, where I want you to really kind of reframe this is, where do I want to go? Pick a period, 3 months or 12 months, and be ruthlessly honest about where I am now. And then pick one thing that is going to move you towards that goal. Not 5, but 1. Now I'm going to go a little deeper on this to show you a little bit about how to do it. So I would say, where do I want to be a year from now? So write that down, where you want to be a year from now, this time next year, when we're celebrating all the good things that are happening in the world and in your business. Where do you want to be a year from now? I'll give you just a minute to write that down. Now think about really where you are right now, and just be honest about that. Just own it. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel guilty about it. Have no emotion about it. Just, where am I now? And now start thinking about, okay, what is my target? What do I really need to focus on? What is one thing that I need to focus on to get there? Take a minute and write that down, because that's kind of like what you're shooting at, right? There's the goal. The target is kind of like if I'm thinking of, like, okay, I see the goal down there. The target is just kind of putting it in the scope. What is that one thing to focus on to get there? Go ahead and write that down. Just that one thing. Now, for those of you that are just starting out, I already told you your one thing. It's knowing who your clients are and talking to them, finding out what their problems are. That's it. Just go do that. Literally, if you just do that for the next month, you'll find your business starts to take off. Not building a business plan, not worrying about your website. Just figure out your target market and go talk to them, find out what their problems are, and just be curious, George. That's all you got to do. For those of you that are a little further along, what I can tell you is your focus is going to fall into these buckets. I either need to focus on serving the clients that I have, or I need to focus on getting more clients. Now, these two things, people like to think they can do both of them well. I can tell you, you can't. Especially if your business is going up and down. There are times when I literally said, I am not going to be able to focus as much on serving clients. I may lose clients because I have to go over here and focus on getting clients. And then when I feel like I'm being successful getting clients, I go back and I focus a little bit better on serving the clients I have. It is crazy to think that if you have a business of any size that you can consistently do both of these well. It is really difficult to do both of these well until you get well above 2 million. Once you're above 2 million in revenue, you can start to do both of these really well, but it is really, really tough to do them prior to that. Now, underneath that are some sub bullets. So if you need to get clients, the first most important thing you got to do is you need tons more awareness than you have today. Tons. And you've got to have a lot of people that are aware. And so maybe what the issue is you don't have enough awareness. And, so it's like, hey, I'm not just going to focus on getting clients. I'm going to really hone down and I'm going to get more awareness in my business. So, and if you've got a lot of awareness in your business, great. Then you can focus on the next thing. And literally it works like this: 1, 2, and 3. But if you don't have enough awareness in your business, it's not going to work. Again, that's not so much for the new folks. For the new folks, I already told you what your one thing is. For those of you that are further along, you're going to be looking at it from this standpoint here. And the number one thing the majority of founders need if their business is under 30K a month and they want it to grow, the number one thing that they need is they need a lot more awareness that their business exists, and they got to double down on that. And it's why we do so much training on marketing and brand awareness, because it's critical. So this is what I call a target. So if my goal is I want my revenue to be here, then I got to know what that one thing is. Am I going to focus more on serving the clients that I have? I go through cycles with that. Sometimes when things are working really well on the service side, I focus more on, and I'm going to double down on demand generation, get new clients. And then I notice something breaks over here on servicing the clients I have. I take my foot off that gas and I come over here and I start working on improving my services again. And I literally every quarter am kind of vacillating between those two. And most of my businesses are anywhere from 30K a month up to maybe 2 million a year. And I still find myself kind of balancing between these two things. So this is kind of going to get you started. We're going to take it to another level. But the next thing I like to do is to say, okay, if my goal is where I want to be in a year, my target is really what do I need to focus on right now this quarter? Then I break it down into what I call a priority. And the priority is, what do I absolutely have to do this week? And I have that written down and I have it on a sticky. It's sitting right here on my computer. And I know exactly what I absolutely have to get done. My priority for the week is this. And I am focused on that this week because it connects to the target and it connects to the goal. So that's the first part of going through the process of figuring out what to focus on. And the prioritization will start to help you build that skill that we talked about. And there's lots of techniques. I use my calendar. I use colored sticky notes on my computer when I'm trying to hyper focus on something. There's lots and lots of tools out there, and I can certainly send you some of those tools. I don't want to get too much into that right now, because what I find for most people is their biggest issue is they're not sure what to focus on. So I'm going to pause the recording before we go forward and see if anybody has questions in this area. Recording here. So the next thing is probably one of the biggest changes that I made in my second decade of entrepreneurship. And that was learning that time is not something you spend, it's something you invest. And, it's a little concept, but it makes a big difference. When you have a job, you spend time. I have to be here 40 hours a week. And sometimes I'm just moving papers around the desk and I'm showing up for meetings and shaking my head and all that kind of stuff. And so you spend time when you're an employee. When you're a founder, you actually, time is the most important asset that you have in the beginning. And I cannot impress that upon you enough. Time is so important when you're a founder. And then trust and relationships, all those things are absolutely critical. But the thing that we underestimate the most is how we spend time versus how to invest time. So I want to give you a tool that I use to help founders learn how to invest their time. And this one is equally effective if you're just starting as it is if you've been doing this for a while. So what you look at is, how much do you enjoy doing it? We start there. Kind of, is it giving you good energy or not? And then the second thing that you looked at is high impact. All right. So what you have is the things that you actually enjoy that are high impact. Those are the things that you're going to want to do. Now, right here, what happens is you can also get in trouble with this because, I like building presentations. And so I can run around and create presentations, but never have a customer to buy any of them. So you have to be careful with this because it's got to fall in the lanes of demand generation and getting clients. It can't just be operations as well. So think of it both in operations. What do you really love doing in operations? And what do you actually love to do to grow the business? So on the growing the business side, what I found about myself is I don't like to network. I'm a huge introvert. It's always shocking when people hear that because I'm very outgoing, but I'm a huge introvert and it takes a lot of energy for me to be around people. So what I discovered is I don't attend a lot of networking events, but I speak at a lot of events. And I do a lot of online networking because that doesn't drain my energy as much. So what I found is I actually enjoy doing online networking. So I'm on Alignable and I'm on these different online things where I get to meet people online, and I like that. So on the demand, you have to look at it both demand generation and operations. You're going to need to find the things you like to do to grow your business that are high impact, but you have to like doing them. You might not like speaking. Don't speak. You might love networking and you hate, social media. Don't do social media. Do networking. So you really need to have a couple of things that you like to do on the grow your business side that are high impact. Meeting more people in any way is a high impact thing. Anything that you do where you can get more brand awareness is high impact. Well, which of those things do you actually like to do? And then operationally, I like building training. I like, building financial models, but I don't like building processes and I don't like building systems. So those are not the things that I'm going to focus on. So I'm going to focus operationally on the things that are high energy, and I'm going to focus that are also high impact. And I'm going to focus on the demand generation or growing the business on the ways that I like to do it. So that's the do part. Once you actually grow the business, what you want to really start to do next is the things that you hate: accounting, building systems, putting a CRM in. If it's a high impact thing like accounting or putting a CRM in, put a little bit of money and find somebody to delegate that to. Don't try to do it all yourself. And I actually find this ironic, but women more so than men are not good delegators. And again, I've coached both for a long time. Women don't delegate very well, and you've got to learn how to delegate. But you don't want to delegate everything. You want to first delegate those things that are high impact that you don't like to do. Conversely, things you love to do that are low impact, you want to do those, but you want to do those second. I actually like posting on social media. I learned to like that, but it's not necessarily high impact, but I still do it because I like to do it. I don't outsource that. Anything that you see on my personal profile is 90% of the time me posting. On our businesses, I have my team posting, but when I'm posting it, it's me because I like to do that. You might not like to do that. But I also know that posting on social media is not as high impact as networking or speaking or so those other things that I talked about a minute ago. So I still do them, but I don't do them at the expense of the things that I need to do that are actually going to really grow the business. Posting on social media doesn't grow the business as much as people think it does. What it does is it reminds people that you're there, people you've already met. What you really want to do are do things that actually get more people to be aware that you exist. And then down here, that things that are low energy, that are low impact, stop doing them altogether. Like literally, we have a purge every year in our larger businesses where we just go through things and we just stop doing them. That system, we're not using it anymore. Take it off. That process that's so complicated, drop it and make a quick version of that. So this idea of dropping the things that are just sucking the life out of you, that are not growing the business, and building that into your rhythm to do that on a regular basis is going to be one of those disciplines that will be super helpful to you. Again, I'm going to just pause and see if there's any other questions, and then I'm going to give you one other tool up with just a couple of reminders. Try to do more of what you love, but don't get into the habit of avoiding the things that you've got to do to grow the business. Your number one priority is to grow the business. Don't forget that ever, 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 ever. Your number one priority should always be growing the business, but you've got to find the ways that you love to do it. Delegate high impact items that you don't enjoy and drop anything that doesn't create impact, which leads me to probably my most important tip. The best lesson that I learned about focus is, I call it the athlete's advantage. I was asked to be on a board of an organization that was training professional and collegiate athletes how to start businesses. And they had done a research study that said collegiate and professional athletes are 3 times more successful as founders than non-athletes. And I'm like, what? Why is that? And I became very curious about it, and I started studying it. That's why I call it the athlete's advantage. Here's what it is when somebody is in motion, it's the act or the process of moving. I'm doing stuff. Makes me feel better. I'm doing stuff. I'm setting up my website now. I'm setting up my spreadsheets. I'm building my business plan. Keep in mind, I told you, you do not need a business plan to start a business. And if somebody tells you that, I am telling you, you do not need to do that. You need to wait at least a year until you know what the business is before you build a business plan. The problem is, building a business plan makes us feel like we're doing something. That's emotion, right? And you go, woo, woo, I'm doing stuff, yay. And we feel like we're making progress, but you're not. You're not going anywhere. Athletes train their mind and their body to make moves. They're not busy doing stuff. Every time they lift a weight, they're thinking about the muscles and which muscles they're working out and how much should they press. And maybe I need to do it this way instead of this way because I need to work on a different muscle. They don't waste any energy. They, particularly the more successful they are in college and in the professional ranks, they know how to conserve their energy, and they have this way of making moves where they go from one place to another. What I want to ask is, are you in motion doing stuff, or are you making moves? Most of the time that I talk to founders, they're in motion and they're not thinking about making moves. And you want to train yourself to make moves. So I call this athlete's advantage. Moves are effort with intention. What that means is when I go to a networking event or I speak at an event, I set an intention. And that event that gentleman was mentioning a while ago, I was like, okay, there's going to be about 70 people there. My intention is that I connect with half the audience, my message connects with half the audience, and that a third of the people that I connect with follow up with me in some way. And so that what that is my way of saying I'm doing this speaking event with the intention of growing my business and growing awareness for my business by putting my words out there. So it's purposeful. It's doing it because it's a reason. I'm not just going there to do stuff. And most of the time when I see people attending networking, they're kind of going through the motion. So think about the things that you're doing for demand generation, networking, posting on social media, speaking, podcasts. Are you doing them with intention? Like you have a real reason for doing them and you're clear on the reason? Or are you just making, you're in motion, it's making you feel better? The other thing I've learned about moves from studying athletes is they're measurable. It's one of the reasons why I set a goal when I speak at an event, or I set a goal when I go to a networking event, that I want to walk away from this having made X number of connections, because it keeps me focused on the activity. So when I go to a networking event, when I go to speak, I set a goal that I'm going to connect with and make X number of new relationships and measure my progress, because it keeps me honest and keeps me very focused on why am I doing this. You can also do what I call daily do lists. Daily do lists. And what daily do lists are moves that move your business forward. And I have 3 moves that I try to make every single week. And one of them is attending or speaking at an event. Another one is posting as often as I can on social media. And the third thing that I do is make new connections on LinkedIn. Those are my 3 moves that I make to grow my business. And I have time on my calendar scheduled to do those moves. And it's not on my list, it's literally on my calendar to make those moves, which keeps me focused. And I dedicate time every single day to making those moves. And you're asking yourself, will this action move me to the goal, or is it just stuff? Okay, so that's a little bit about what we have for you guys today. As I mentioned, you're welcome to join us for any of our events. We have Authentic Marketing coming up November 12th, Success Accelerator, which is really between, the mindset part of being successful as a founder. You can also check out our YouTube page. There's hundreds of these free trainings on there. You can check all of them out. And we would love to have you at any of our events and love to have you part of this amazing community. And if you've got any questions, do not hesitate to ask.